Government debt refers to the money that a country's government borrows to cover expenses that exceed its revenues. This borrowing can come from issuing bonds or taking loans from domestic and international sources. The level of government debt can influence interest rates, inflation, and the overall health of the economy. For everyday people, changes in government debt can affect job opportunities, the cost of borrowing, and the availability of public services. Understanding government debt helps us see how national financial decisions can have a direct impact on our daily lives. Government debt refers to the total amount of money that a country's government owes to external creditors and domestic lenders. This debt is accumulated when a government spends more than it collects in revenue, often by issuing bonds or taking out loans to cover the shortfall. Over time, as governments continue to borrow to finance projects, social programs, or address budget deficits, the total debt grows. Interest payments on existing debt can also contribute to its increase. Managing this debt is an ongoing challenge for policymakers, as it impacts a nation's financial stability and economic growth. Governments borrow money primarily by issuing bonds, which are essentially promises to repay borrowed funds with interest at a later date. These bonds are sold to investors, such as individuals, banks, and other countries. The main reasons for government borrowing include funding large infrastructure projects, covering budget deficits when expenditures exceed revenues, and responding to emergencies like economic crises or natural disasters. Borrowing allows governments to spread the cost of major expenses over time, making it easier to manage public finances. However, taking on debt also requires careful planning to ensure future repayments can be met without straining the economy. Government debt can significantly influence both inflation and the value of your money. When a government borrows heavily, it may choose to finance its debt by creating more money, which can lead to higher inflation. As inflation rises, the purchasing power of your money decreases, meaning you can buy less with the same amount. Additionally, high levels of government debt can undermine confidence in a country's currency, potentially leading to further declines in its value. Understanding these dynamics is important for anyone concerned about the long-term stability of their finances. When government debt increases, it often leads to higher demand for borrowing in financial markets. This can result in rising interest rates, as lenders seek greater returns to compensate for the increased risk and competition for funds. For individuals, higher interest rates mean that loans, mortgages, and credit become more expensive. As borrowing costs climb, people may find it more challenging to finance major purchases or investments. Over time, these changes can impact household budgets and overall economic activity. Government debt can have significant implications for both taxes and public services. As debt levels rise, governments may need to increase taxes to cover interest payments and reduce budget deficits. This can place a greater financial burden on individuals and businesses. Additionally, higher debt may lead to cuts in public services, as more resources are diverted to servicing the debt rather than funding programs like education, healthcare, or infrastructure. Over time, persistent high debt can limit a government's ability to respond to economic challenges and invest in future growth. High government debt can have lasting effects on both the economy and individual finances. Over time, large debt levels may lead to higher interest rates as governments compete with the private sector for borrowed funds. This can make loans and mortgages more expensive for consumers and businesses. Additionally, governments might need to raise taxes or reduce public spending to manage debt, potentially impacting public services and disposable income. Persistent high debt can also limit a country's ability to respond to future economic crises. As government debt continues to rise, it's important to take proactive steps to safeguard your finances. Diversifying your investments can help reduce risk, especially during periods of economic uncertainty. Consider allocating assets across stocks, bonds, and tangible assets like real estate or precious metals. Keeping an emergency fund and minimizing high-interest debt can also provide greater financial stability. Staying informed about economic trends and consulting with a financial advisor can further strengthen your financial resilience. In summary, Government debt plays a significant role in shaping the broader economy and can influence everything from interest rates to the value of your savings. High levels of debt may lead to increased borrowing costs and could impact inflation, which in turn affects everyday expenses and investments. Understanding these connections helps you make more informed financial decisions. Staying aware of government fiscal policies can provide valuable insight into the future of your personal finances.